Hello, hello. Welcome to Upwork Academy. Today we're talking about the top 5 things that you should never do on Upwork. Let's start with all of the things that Upwork asks us to pay extra connects for. And when I talk about connects on Upwork, these are these things right here. The way that Upwork works is that we have a client who puts a job listing on Upwork. These are what they look like for the most part. They're usually a headline description. It's a little bit about the job and what goes into it and some of the specs involved. And in order for us as the freelancer to actually apply to it and send a proposal into that client, it costs connects on Upwork. Pay to play site by nature, but I don't want you to be deterred. Go in here, see what the buy connects button is. What I don't want you to do is spend connects on anything other than proposals. So anything like the availability badge, which is essentially saying to clients that you're online. And the reason this is not helpful for us on Upwork is because on your profile, there's really not an obvious way that clients can see that you're online aside from in the messaging center. Normally, like on Fiverr, for example, there's a little green dot that shows up next to your name. So it'll be kind of like right here. And normally that helps because in Fiverr system, it's a little bit more, it helps a little bit more with client to freelancer communication because clients expect the freelancer to be online. They expect them to be available. There's a little bit more of that expectation kind of baked into the platform. Whereas Upwork is a little bit more, there's a little disconnect there in terms of you being online versus them being online. The client's not really looking for that in the same way a Fiverr client might be. So us paying for it with connects is just kind of a waste of money. Boost your profile is another thing that Upwork asks us for to pay connects. It's another thing that's really not going to make a whole lot of sense. It does put your profile in front of clients a little bit more, but because Upwork's system is very client puts something on the platform and then we go to them. Boosting your profile is going the other direction on Upwork. Sometimes you will be getting these things called an invite, which is when a client actually reaches out to you. And they oftentimes don't cost connects. They're really, really great, really good part of Upwork that we want to encourage. But boosting your profile is just going against the current of what Upwork is. There's other ways for us to get in front of clients that don't cost extra connects. Another thing I don't want you to do is waste connects on actually boosting your proposal, which is this section down here. So this section is optional, does suggest to you that you put a certain number of connects in order to outbid the person that has put their profile at the top of the list. The thing is, and this is why I talk a lot about using filters and making sure that we're not competing with a lot of people, is because you don't need to boost if you have less proposals to compete with. If you have it so that you have your filters completely get rid of all the competitive jobs, then this system here becomes pretty obsolete. So I don't really want you to do this either. I know it's really tempting. I know it feels like you're not going to get seen when you're in those early stages when you're just trying to get your first couple clients on here. So I completely understand that. This is the way that Upwork makes money. They're very freelancer focused. If we had to pick between how much they support the client versus the freelancer, they're very freelancer focused. And that is because we bring a lot of the money to the platform. So we have to be happy in order for clients to actually want to show up on the platform at all. And so they want to make sure that we are not feeling taken advantage of and things like that. So Upwork is really smart about that, but they are going to do stuff like this that's going to make you feel like you have to do this in order to be even seen by clients. And it's just not true. I have so many videos on my channel at this point that talk about using filters, making sure jobs are not competitive, all that stuff for you guys. So go check those out. Don't be tempted by this. I know it's here. I know it feels like you got to do it. You do not have to do it. Let's talk about proposals for a second. So the other thing I don't want you to do is to go into your terms section, and I do not want you to change this ever. And the reason is that you don't have enough information, and that's because we have to have a conversation with the client. So I don't like to do this because I want a client to actually open my proposal. So if they do see what you're offering on their proposal before they ever open it. And so I don't want you to do any changing numbers here just because it's going to make a client feel a certain way about you before they had a chance to look at your profile. And so I want you to keep this flat. And then I want you to put in your cover letter, which, by the way, I want you to keep it super short. I don't want to see super long, crazy dissertations from anybody because clients on here are just drowning. They're just overwhelmed. And so if you can just keep it super duper short, I have other videos on how to write a good cover letter on here, but keep it a couple of sentences and then just do a call to action, which in marketing is just a little line at the very end that says, hey, go do this next step, and then send me a message, something like that, and then sign off and keep it super simple. But in terms of the cover letter, the thing I want you to do to negate this whole process here is just put something in your cover letter that says, let's discuss fixed rate contract, because I love a fixed rate contract that works for both of us. Something like that will work just fine, because that just negates the whole thing of this and then opens the door to talking about budget stuff. So keep it super simple, super short. I don't want to see long me, I sort of cover letters on here. That's something that I see a lot when it comes to cover letter issues. So I'll call that number 4. Proposal issues, just long dissertations that are just generally speaking about a certain kind of job. So I don't want to see, we don't want to use AI in order to write this thing. You know, we do this kind of thing, or we've been doing this design for 10 plus years, and then you list out like why you're so helpful and so great. Here's the project, here's the thing that I do, and you know, we have super fast service, and this kind of stuff where you're listing out bullets about why you are such a great freelancer to work with. And it, again, tempting to do these things because you're trying to, it feels like you're trying to convince them why they should work with you. Or I'm new to Upwork, you know, but please hire me because of these things. Like, here's why I'm great, despite the fact that I don't have reviews, something like that. I say this is the kiss of death because you've drawn attention to it. So you've put it in the client's head that you're new. And so now they're thinking about it. They may have not been thinking about it before you brought it up. So do not tell people, do not apologize for being new to Upwork. You are a professional. You are a professional on other areas of the internet, and you've just arrived on Upwork at this point. And so bring all of that expertise. But I would go in, and this is just the way that I do this, is I keep it super short. So I like a short cover letter. Can I help you? So this crucial, this is so important, is I want you to think to yourself, okay, how can I write language that is, how can I help you? What can I bring to your project? How can I repeat back to them exactly what's in their actual proposal rather than talking generally about, so you, in their brain, they're thinking of themselves, okay, not who's the most necessarily experienced, but who gets my project? How do you show them that you understand their project better than other people do? Because that can get you further than somebody who maybe has a better portfolio, who maybe has more reviews than you do. All of those things, it's like dating, is we don't want to be talking about ourselves. We want to come in with a little bit of, here's what I bring to your project. Here's what I noticed about your project in particular. I have to look at the art styles they're interested, the character stuff, because they're giving me information. So go look at the links they give you. Go actually do a little research on what they're talking about, and then mention it back to them that you did that research, that you looked at their links. I mean, you can even say, I took a look at the links you provided, and then tell them what you thought about it. Here's my thoughts. Because they could care less about the cool projects you've done, quite honestly. They don't really care what you've done previous to this. They don't care about all of the cool services that you do because they don't have any evidence of it. So if you don't have, especially if you don't have reviews saying, hey, I give good quality service, I do X, Y, and Z, doesn't mean a whole lot to a client who can't see evidence of that. So this is their first interaction with you. What is your thought on this? Do you bring any excitement to this kind of project? Anything like that. The mentality is so unique to each client. What do they really want? What are they really looking for? And so I want you to just make the little switch in your head to try and look for those things. What do they really care about? Do they care about time frame? Do they care about the style? Do they care about how it's done? How is it delivered? Is it an Amazon book and it needs to be KDP compliant? Do they care that you know how to use a certain developer platform, like a web developer system, where it has to be built in Wix or it has to be built exclusively in HTML, which would be an interesting choice. Things like this, where it is specific and unique to that client. I want you to think, okay, what is that thing that they want more than anything else? Because if you can identify that, then it won't matter how many reviews you have on Upwork. It won't matter about your portfolio as much. It's really going to be what you bring to the table. I can tell you, as somebody who's been a client on Upwork and actually hires people on here, a lot of times what I'm looking for, because it's weird, I immediately stop being a freelancer. I immediately stop working in the I've been teaching Upwork for a while kind of mindset. And I just go into my client mindset and I'm immediately thinking to myself, okay, who has a good portfolio? Who gets my project? Who's actually listening? Because when I go through the proposals and it's just template after template after template, it's exhausting. It's frustrating. It's like, somebody please just read my description. Because that's what most people are doing on here is they just send templates. They basically just say, hey, I'm the correct kind of freelancer. And that's where it stops, is they don't have a whole lot to really give the client to say, hey, I understand your project. Hey, I understand what you're trying to get at. Because they just don't, they're kind of doing shotgun freelancing a little bit. And I always say ready, fire, aim, but I don't mean it in this sense where I want you to just send proposals just wildly without any intention on here. Is we have to be intentional. And then a couple of things rapid fire I want you to think about are your description. I want you to keep it super short, just like what I was talking about with proposals. I want you to focus on the what I help with. What I help with, not a big long dissertation about why you're great. Here's what I bring to the table. Here's what I bring to your project as much as possible. Portfolios. Big mistake I see all the time is naming conventions. So calling it just something that's related to the project name, not even titling it properly, using inside baseball terminology that makes sense to just you and I as professionals, but not to a client. So I want you to just always, always, always be using tags for this. And I have other videos on that. If you don't know what that means, go check those out. But I have just a simple naming convention for this, which is just call it exactly what it is. And I know that that sounds like, wow, crazy, revolutionary stuff, Kayla, but I'm serious. I want you to get in your client's head and think, okay, what is the thing that they're going to think to themselves? Yeah, that's exactly what I need to click on. That's my thing. I could have called this a lot of things. I could have called this concept art. It could be character turnarounds. I mean, there's stuff that makes sense to me as an illustrator that is not going to make sense to a client. So we need to make sure these things are super simple, super clickable. I want you to stop going for the super competitive, super high budget stuff on here. And I know that's going to, a lot of you are like, what? No, Kayla, please. Unless you have 2 reviews, minimum, 5-star reviews. I made the mistake when I first came on Upwork that I thought my portfolio is really good. It's getting me work on Fiverr. I will get work on Upwork because of that. It's just not true. It's just not going to work that way because Upwork is its own internal environment. And because of that, we have to get clients confirmation that you're somebody who they can trust. And so you need those first couple reviews. Okay, those are my things you must not do on Upwork. There's tons of stuff like that. But I want to leave you with this. It is more important that you send proposals on Upwork, that you don't get paralyzed. It's so much better if you do it wrong on here and you just start to learn things than for you to never do it at all. And so I want you to actually start sending proposals this week, not Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because clients don't want to actually do work on those days. But during the week, I want you to send 2 intentional proposals this week because it is more important that you do it than to not do it. All right, guys, I will put a video on screen for you that is exactly what you need for filter setting, and I will see you guys in the next one.